Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of my Pro Wrestling Society podcast. Today, I'm going to be going over several topics that I feel are important to be addressed in pro wrestling. And the first one is going to be on cultural appropriation. So this is one of the big issues that I have with pro wrestling. Is just the cultural appropriation when you have a certain wrestler, namely a white wrestler, who takes something from a certain culture that's not his, and he presents it as his own, and same for a woman. And to me, that's problematic because, you're not of that culture, you're not of that race, so why are you taking something from a culture that's not yours and you're profiting off of it? And this is not just a wrestling problem. This is a problem that I find in pretty much all of society. And it's disrespectful, and it's very insensitive because number one, you're not being creative. You're just sort of like stealing someone else's work, someone else's culture, and you're presenting it as your own. That's the number one issue I have with it. There's lots of wrestlers who do come up with their own thing without culturally appropriating, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, for example. He represents his own culture. He's from Texas. He doesn't steal from other cultures, does his own thing. The Undertaker, for example, he created his own thing. The dead man gimmick, that sort of supernatural element. No cultural appropriation there. I think John Cena is probably the one that I have a problem with, because he has he's profiting off of the thug persona, or what is commonly or is stereotypically known as black culture. And he's not even from that culture. He's not a thug. He's not a black person. So he's quote unquote acting black. He's just, it's like, why is it okay for him to do it but not a real black person who's actually a thug to do it? It makes no sense to me. Other people like Raven, you notice that he wears this Native American necklace around his neck, but that's because he's actually half Native American. Rey Mysterio doesn't culturally appropriate because he's actually Mexican. He wears the Mexican flag around his around himself and whatnot, so he can do that. But other people in wrestling, they can't do it because they're just misusing the culture and just trying to make it into a costume or something that it's not. And and they're using their white privilege to uplift themselves and make money off of it. when they're not, it's like it's so unfair. It's not, they're white and they're just making money off of someone else's culture, because if they can make money off of it, then everybody who presents it, who presents him or herself that way, should be able to make as much money too, if we're going to be like that. But unfortunately, there's this thing where if somebody doesn't have white privilege and is a minority and is considered normal, then that's the unfairness. You should stick to your. That's the other issue I have with it, is that when white wrestlers take something from another person's culture and present it as their own, it's just, it's disrespectful, like I said. So that's pretty much how I feel about it. I feel like the majority of wrestlers that I've seen are pretty respectful. They stay in their own lanes. They make sure they represent their own culture. But there's, every now and then, I'll come across some wrestlers who are just misusing cultures and just presenting it as their own, and rather than relying on their own creativity. And I can't be down for that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say on that topic. Okay, so up next is sensitive fans. Now I'm talking about these fans who they, how do I explain it? Like, okay, so you insult a wrestler, and they automatically jump on you, and they attack you, they insult you, they call you all these names on the internet, and I just don't have a problem with it. I just laugh about it when I'm online. But I guess this is one of the issues that I just have to tackle, is that wrestling fans are just so sensitive sometimes. I mean, you insult somebody, a wrestler, and they automatically get on your case, and I feel like, as a fan, you should be able to pretty much diss who you want. I mean, in wrestling, because that's what wrestling has been all about since it first started, in regards to the sports entertainment aspect of it, at least. Excuse me. People could cheer or boo for whoever they want, and I feel like that's just how wrestling should be. You boo and cheer for whoever you want. You throw whatever insults you want. You say whatever. And of course, don't go too far. I mean, on social media, I wouldn't go as far as to go on said wrestler's social media account and flat out attack them or whatnot. I would just express my opinion, and that's that. And I might bash that wrestler, but insulting people, insulting fans is immature, and I don't think it has any place in wrestling. So, if somebody insults my favorite wrestler, I'm just not going to care. I'm probably going to laugh, because I really don't take things personal. I don't. It's very hard to offend me, or if not offend me, then offend me to a point where I'm just gonna verbally attack you. But That's pretty much it for that. I mean, I think that wrestling fans shouldn't really take things too seriously because it's it shouldn't affect you on that personal. Nothing should affect you on that personal level is what I'm trying to say. So, um, last topic I want to go over is worst move, the absolute worst move in professional wrestling. And that would have to be Phoenix. He has the worst move in professional wrestling. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I've been watching, some of his matches, and I came across some where he did I don't know what it's called, but it's like a springboard cutter. Um, or a flying springboard cutter or a flying RKO. I don't know which one, but basically his opponent jumps in midair, and then Phoenix jumps up and does that springboard cutter and hits other guy lands on the mat, and boom. And here's why it's so bad. It's because it's so obvious that his opponent is trying to help him out. And when you do that, that ruins the credibility, that ruins the reality, that ruins the whole match because it's so obvious. Like, why would somebody jump up in midair and then, just at a random, and then Phoenix does his springboard cutter? Makes no sense. And other people have done it way better than Phoenix has. And they don't even do what he does. So, they don't do it up in the air and whatnot because it just looks ridiculous. And I think that's what wrestlers need to realize is that when you're doing your signature moves, they're just so focused on how the move is executed that they're not thinking about how logical it is and and if it makes any sense or not. And that's my problem with wrestling nowadays is that now you just got a bunch of guys who are just throwing moves together and it just makes no logical sense. It's pretty frustrating and it's pretty bad, horrible. It's like, how are you going to get hit with a signature move and then you're going to make your comeback like not even a minute later? It just ruins the believability of the match. I mean, if you're going to do a signature move, then it has to make sense. It has to make sense, not just technical wise, but also story wise. Can't just throw a move in there and just be lazy about it and expect the fans to believe it, that it actually happened when it's not believable. And that's probably why wrestling is dying nowadays, because wrestlers just seems like they just assume that because everyone knows it's predetermined that they don't have to try anymore and they can just do whatever they feel like doing because it's scripted. And that's not true. It's still an art form that you have to perfect. It's still something that has to be believable and realistic, and it has to tell a story. You know, and just because you have 30, it doesn't mean anything if you have 30 moves and you can't do jack about them, you know? So, rant over. So that's all I got to say about that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know if you have any more topics that you want me to go over or talk about. And that in mind, like this video, subscribe to my channel, feel free to donate, all that jazz. And I'll see you next week.